Good morning. This is Jeff Hildebrand from TBL Traders. Today's video is going to be on technical and chart patterns. I'm going to go over 3 or 4 of the basic patterns and speak about a few of the problems or some experience trading technical patterns. You will read and learn that technical patterns appear in all time frames. I would say this is only half true. Be careful of that phrase. The reliability of your patterns that you learn to trade will depend on a few things. Mostly the time frame, volume of course, and the type of traders that are behind the product. Trading patterns arrive because of for basically psychological reasons, mostly people which are fear and greed, and those things are reflected in the technical patterns. So depending on the product, the volume, the traders that are behind the product will depend a little on how successful you are trading specific technical setups. I spoke about the Head and Shoulders in an earlier video. Here it is again with Caesar's acquisition. I'll go over it one more time in case you didn't see the last video. This is a Head and Shoulders is made up of 2 shoulders and a head, and it can be inversed as well. So the Head and Shoulders signals normally the high end of a market range for a stock. In this case, again, the left shoulder, head, right shoulder, and neckline. And this is where a lot of people look for trades. And that's why you start to see some churn here on the end of the right shoulder, because traders are setting up they're recognizing the head and shoulders, and now they're getting into the trade. I also spoke about the most popular, which would be a trend or a channel. I pulled out Tesla here because I've done videos as well on Tesla. Keep in mind my time frame here is 6 months. This is a longer term time frame. You can see 2 channels here, a downward channel and an upward channel. So this would be on a shorter time frame. This would be on a longer time frame. You would look to enter these trades if you're short on the upper end of the trend, or if you're long here on the lower side of the trend or at the lower side of the channel. The reason entry is so important in channels is because you don't know how long the channel can last. And what happens with new traders, and every trader in fact, is that by the time you identify the pattern, so is everybody else. So you are probably at the end of that pattern, which is the frustration with trading. The earlier you can get into a pattern, the better. And the entry is very important because it'll allow you to get out or set up stops at places which make more sense. What else do I have here? Quickly, Wynn Resorts, Wyndham Worldwide. This is a triangle pattern. Sometimes it's set up with a flag. This is an ascending pattern. So like I said, this is an ascending pattern. You can see a triangle here. This is less clear, but you see the resistance level. It's relatively flat, and a rising. So it's consolidating at a higher price. This is often a breakout signal. So as this consolidates in a smaller and smaller range, what will happen is there's been a lot of stops set up here. People are saying, okay, this is my stop limit. They get in because they're trying to get short. They make some money. Then it swings back up. They decide, okay, do I hang on to it? More resistance. They're happy with their stops. They see they're making money again. They get here, and one of these days this thing breaks out. Possibly. That's the idea behind this this pattern. And when it does break out, it'll break out relatively strongly because there'll be a lot of stops set up at this level. And when it does, all these people are going to be covering their stops, and that'll push the stock higher. So I talked about the importance of time frames. Let me go back into that because I trade the ES futures a lot, so let's look at the ES futures and let's go way down to 3 days for the moment, and let's just on the fly look for patterns here and see what we see. We see a channel, okay, on a short time frame, so that would have been the last few hours of the market. Close on Thursday or Friday. After a big up move, often you see in consolidation, people are trying to figure out what's going on. So you see another type of channel, wide, a wide channel if you want to trade that wide, or an up channel and a down channel. Okay, you can start drawing these lines. Keep it simple. Try to make sense for yourself. Here we are, Friday. Is that Friday? I think that was Friday. With another tight channel. Okay, so trends and channels again. Let's go in even closer and see what we have here. I have here 15-minute candles on a 3-day. I want today, let's say 5-minute candles, and start looking for something. It's interesting. This is a little interesting right here because I have a very strong resistance line here. Imagine that this hadn't happened yet and I was looking at a descending triangle here. I might have looked at making a trade here because here's a classic triangle pattern, descending triangle pattern, with the assumption that it was going to break down. It didn't do that, and that often happens with patterns. They don't respond as they should, or as you read that they should, and they become frustrating. Over time, you'll identify almost subconsciously some of the things that contribute to patterns. Like I said, there's a psychological element behind them, and volume will play a role. Some of these other indicators, I like to use stochastics, will play a role on whether you get into this trade, for example, short at this moment. It's not a 5-minute time frame, so this would have happened relatively quickly over the course of an hour or two. You would have been looking to make a trade here, probably short, but your trigger would have been set up below the baseline. So I wouldn't have got into this trade because the proof that it was breaking this diagonal down would have been about here. So you're looking for an entry short under this line. That's where the stops are going to get broken out and the downward trend is going to continue. After that, you have to make measurements. Some people use this type of measurement like this. So I'll just take this line, drag it here, and you would have a target about here with an entry about here. Anyways, that's an example of how you use technical patterns, how I use technical patterns. Thanks for listening to the video. If you have any questions, let me know.